Hey, what's up? What's up, good people? Welcome to the Throne Talk podcast. I am your host, Micaiah Janae, and it's been a minute. Has it been a minute? No, actually, I'm kind of on time, but I will admit that I have been procrastinating. Um, I was been supposed to record this episode, but as you can see, or those of you who can see, I am in a new location. Yes, I'm in a new city, so I was transitioning there. Also, too, I've been going through it honestly, and it has taken a lot out of me to even to just dedicate the time and energy that I need to my gifts, talents, my businesses. It's just been a lot. God has been requiring a lot of me in the season, and it's feeling very unfair because it's like, okay, if I'm gonna be doing all of this, where are the benefits? But that's neither here or there. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Throne Talk podcast. For those of you who are new, the Throne Talk podcast is where I just give you all my queenly perspective on how to navigate through life. I spent most of my 20s. I am now 29. The last time I spoke with you all, I was 28 years old, but now I am 29 years old. And I spent most of my 20s in pageantry. And it just gave me like this whole theme of like throne talk, queen. I learned how to be a queen mainly in that industry. And so that's why it's called Throne Talk Podcast. And yeah, and like I said, this is the podcast where I just give you my queenly perspective on how to navigate through like real life situations. All right, so before we get into what we're going to get into today, I need for y'all to follow the Glory Throne Academy pages on Instagram, okay? On Instagram, on Facebook. That is GLORYTHRONE Wait, I'm tripping. GLORYTHRONEACADEMY. Glory Throne Academy on Instagram and on Facebook. Y'all, I wish y'all, like, for those of you who are listening, I wish y'all could just see my skin because it's giving. She won't give it for a while, but, she's back and she's better. She's better. She's way better. But, also, too, before we get into whatever we're going to get into today, I need for y'all to rate this podcast. Do that for me. My birthday was June 26th. So if y'all want to give me a late birthday present, go search or, go to this podcast on your streaming platform, wherever you are listening, and make sure you rate this podcast for me, download it, and all the things. Speaking of downloads, let's get into that we have reached our 1,000 downloads. Yay! I'm gonna do the claps myself. But we've reached 1,000 downloads. Get into it. And we did it right in our anniversary month of June. We started I released the first episode June of 2022, and in June of 2023 we reached 1,000 downloads. Yay! Okay, all right, let me get into it. So as you can see, the topic for today is the heartbreak needed to happen. And when I say I've gotten my heart broken more times this year than I ever had in my whole entire life, like my heart has been broken. It has been broken. And when I say heart, of course, I'm not referring to the physical heart, right? But I am talking about my expectations of certain things, certain people did not happen the way I wanted it to happen, right? Or I put 100% of my trust or my love into something that just wasn't for me, or I just gave it to someone who just probably wasn't ready, or I just put it into a situation that is not necessarily done blooming yet, if you follow me. But the world's view of heartbreak, we hear it in the songs, and when people get their heart broken, it's kind of like, oh my God, when they tell the story or when they tell the narrative, it's very much they actually victimize themselves most of the time. Like 90% of the time, they're victimizing themselves when they tell their story of heartbreak. And there's like no accountability, none whatsoever. Or not only that, not even accountability, but there's really no healthy perspective as to why the situations happen the way that they did. So of course I got to give y'all a pageant example first, and then I'm gonna get into all the tea of my real life because I rarely do that, but today I'm gonna give y'all a little bit more. So for example, and I have my notebook right here too. So for example, when I first started competing back in 2014, or when I first made it to Miss South Carolina in 2016, and I didn't make top 16, it sent me in a downward spiral. And my heart was so broken. Not only was my heart broken, but my ego was torn to shreds. As I've stated before in other previous episodes, it was all a culture shock to me because, I mean, that's not where I'm from. These are not the people that I'm typically around, but I was showing up in this industry. And so where I'm from, people were celebrating me and they were happy for me that I was going to, compete at a pageant of this caliber. And then when the pageant says, or when the judges say, yeah, or they didn't think that I was quote unquote qualified enough to make top 16, it did something to me. But what I realized was, now that I'm looking at this perspective of it all, it's just like, look, that heartbreak needed to happen because I was not ready to be Miss South Carolina. As good as I was, as talented as I was, as nice as I was, as community serving as I was, it still didn't change the fact that there were qualities in me. There were characteristics and traits that I carried that could have did more damage than good. So if I would have became Miss South Carolina in 2014, it definitely it wouldn't have been a pretty sight, because I didn't even realize that I was dealing with serious abandonment issues. I didn't even know that I had like deep rooted insecurities. I didn't know any of that until my heart got broken. Does that make sense? And it's just kind of like, I thought I was good because I was being successful, because I was succeeding at things, because I was utilizing my talents, and because I was just being nice. I thought I was more than qualified or ready, which granted, God still uses you even broken, right? You don't have to be perfect. That's not the point. But I prayed this specific prayer when I was younger, and I meant it. And I think it has a lot to do with why I'm dealing with things the way I'm dealing with them today. But I said a prayer, and I told God, I said, do not move me until I'm ready. And baby, when I tell you he ain't moved me yet, it's like, my kid, these are the prayers that you've prayed, even as it pertains to like relationships, like romantic relationships. I was just like, God, I just want something real, authentic, and true. I don't care how long it takes. Why did I say that? I broke my own heart in that case. But yeah, I wasn't exposed to that side of myself, which is still a part of me. Not a part of me like as in of now, but it is a part of it. At that time, it was a side of myself that I hadn't seen. And it's very important to explore the darker sides of yourself. Just so you'll know how low you'll go. Like, being exposed to that side of myself just let me know, like, ooh, girl, you have the potential to damage some things, but I didn't know that. And it took the right situation to reveal it to me. And that's what not making top 16 did for me in 2014. It was just like, wait a minute, you're not perfect. Wait a minute, you're a human. Like, you're absolutely a human. But let's get into some things that have, let's get into some heartbreak that has happened to me recently and the difference now. My response is different. I'm a grown woman, period. And even though I'm a grown woman and my response is healthier and it's so much better, it doesn't change the fact that these things hurt. However, God has allowed me in this season to really change my perspective about how things have been breaking my heart. And breaking my heart in this season has been more so of like my expectations of how I feel like things should have happened. So I will be completely honest with y'all. I announced that I had the pageant workshop back in May. And, you know, only 3 people registered, like actually pay their money to attend this event. Y'all don't know that. I mean, now you do. But you didn't know that because of the footage, how I put it up. It just sounded like a lot of people was in the room. And it was, but it was mostly the people who came to help me. And there was a giveaway winner and her mom that attended that event. And it was so heartbreaking because I know the passion and I know I have a lot of solutions that could fix the problems in not only in just the world, but in this pageant industry specifically, right? And I know that I gave it my all and I did everything with the purest intentions and I was 100% accountable about anything that I could have possibly did wrong. But in a sense, I was kind of blackballed. Not saying that people, not saying that people, gathered around the table and was just like, hey, let's blackball Makia's event or protest her event. But no, I think everybody subconsciously disassociated themselves with me because they didn't want to jeopardize their opportunity to be Miss South Carolina, right? And so planning for only, to me, like, if you know me, back in the day, I used to just think big, wide, and not realistic. And so back in the day, I would have planned this event for like 200 people. That's not realistic, right? I mean, not yet. This time I scaled down and I'm just like, realistically, I know I could get 50 people in a room. I could get 100 people, but realistically, just to be safe, to be on the safe side, I was like, I could do 50 people. What's 50 people, right? And when only 3 people showed up, or five people showed up for this event, y'all, it broke my heart. I was so overwhelmed and I was just so, I was in a funk. It was the biggest reality check, which I'm glad it happened because that's what this episode is about. But just to know or to be exposed to not betrayal, but to be exposed to people flip-flopping in that manner on this level this soon, it's actually a blessing because if God hasn't raised me up yet to where he wants me to go, right, it's best that I experience it now. It's just so much better if I experience it now, opposed to if I was to win a Grammy or, be on and popping in front of the world or whatever, and then this happens to me. It's like, no, God was showing me back in May that I want to show you what people are capable of. And even though you have hope and faith in them, it does not necessarily mean that you can trust them. Don't put your full trust in those people. Not 100% because people are fickle. I'm fickle, but it's not to say that you can't believe in people, have faith in people, have hope in people, but it's just like, let's be realistic as it pertains to the trust. Where do you invest the trust at? And I put too much trust in, like, my thought process was, they're going to show up for me. Like, I know they're going to show up for me because I invested so much into the pageant industry, and that's not what it was. And let's keep it a buck. Let's talk about why a lot of people didn't, or anybody really didn't come to the event. It's because I spoke out. Obviously, if y'all go listen to other episodes, I spoke so much truth that people didn't want to, like I said, associate themselves with me. It was just like, I know my kid is right, but I'm trying to be Miss South Carolina, so let me just play it safe. Which is very understandable, but I think for me, it was going to be I just thought it was going to be different, and it really broke my heart. Like, it sent me into a funk. But not only that, I was going through so many relational issues during that time, and to me, I felt like everybody had like abandoned me, or it got to the point. What I realized in that season of my life, which has just recently passed and it's still kind of somewhat here, is that I was just overplaying my part. And something that a scripture that my mama always remind me of is, don't cast your pearls before swine. Not saying that people are pigs. I mean, they are. Some people are, but don't cast. Basically saying it'll be a waste of time if you continue to just cast your pearls before swine and try to prove that, hey, I'm worth loving. Hey, this is worth having. Hey, this is just trying to prove, spending a lot of your time trying to prove a point, spending a lot of your time trying to bring people into your world when they don't belong there. Simply put. And I didn't realize that I was doing that. I'm a big community person. I'm a huge community person. I'm all for, bringing people together and everybody feeling included. I don't want people to feel left out. And I thought that meant, let me do everything possible to show these people that I am the person who can make them feel included, But in return, I was neglecting my own self, my own products, what I was offering, I wanted these people to be my audience, of course, right? Because that's my target audience, like pageant girls or girls who participate in pageants. However, God is doing a new thing inside of me. I think he wants me to build up a whole new generation of girls who have never even been exposed to it, just like me when I was 18, you know? But like I said, during this time, I was going through so many relationship issues, and it was one of those things where everybody had set a boundary with me. It was like everybody had set a boundary with me in some way, shape, or form, which wasn't wrong. And I've always respected people's boundaries. And if I didn't, I always check myself and say, hey, respect boundaries. That makes sense, right? But I wasn't setting boundaries with other people. So it was almost like, hey, my kid could, like, there were multiple people that I was in, like, that I have relationships with. Multiple people saying, okay, my kid could get this much access. She can't go no further than this, right? And it was actually neglecting our relationship. But in return, when they were ready to talk back to me, when they were ready to pour out, vent out whatever they had going on, I was an open book. There was no boundaries. And the reason why it was so important that heartbreak happened to me, because I'm naturally not a person who set boundaries. They were actually doing a good thing, doing what was best for them, right? I just didn't know how to do it for myself. So I understood it for them. I just didn't know how to do it for myself. And so when I did, in return, set the boundary in response to heartbreak, I got a different response from people who weren't expecting that from me. Because like I said, I'm naturally not a person who sets boundaries. But I had to, because it got to the point where I was being drained and my cup wasn't being filled. And that's not what we doing in 2023 or beyond. Not unless God specifically tells me, like minister to that person. Even if they can't give anything to you right now, minister to that person. So I'll do that out of obedience. But what I'm not doing in this season is overplaying my part. So I can't give too much information about, the things that I've gone through. But I will say this, that life is different now. Like I said, I'm 29 years old. My friends, my family, all of us are going through like crazy transitions, crazy transitional periods. Things are happening, people buying houses, people owning huge businesses, people getting married, having kids, and it's just those very transformative things, and we're all trying to figure out like, how do we do it now? But like I said, going back to the topic, I just had to figure out, my kid, like, you see what everybody else doing? You see how everybody else is setting a boundary, and not personally against you, right? Let me just clarify. It's not that people were setting a boundary to get rid of me. It wasn't that people were setting a boundary because it was a personal attack towards me, more so than it is whatever the vision was for their lives. A boundary needed to be set in place to accomplish that vision, And I had to take on that same mentality and say, Micaiah, you have a vision as well. You must set a boundary as well. Allowing people to just pour their, whatever traumas they have on you, that's not yours to carry. You're not a trash can. I'm going to need for you to make it very clear that this is not where you dump your trash off at. This is not the place. And I know I made you feel comfortable before doing that, but not anymore. And that's not saying that I don't help people navigate through life because I'm doing it now. Or that's not saying that I'm not a listening ear anymore. But it's just simply saying there's a boundary with me too. I may not have the capacity to take on what you got going on today. Or even verbalizing, like, can you fill my cup today? Does that make sense? Like, can you fill my cup today? Or do you have what it takes to fill my cup today? Because if not, I'm going to have to go somewhere else to get it. So May and June was rough. It was very rough for me. And now that I'm here, because I'm still coming out of that transition period, but now that I'm here and I have somewhat of a better perspective of everything, I just know that God got me through it all and the purpose of the heartbreak. So my questions to you today are, I have two questions. So one, what do you have a unhealthy obsession with? What do you have a unhealthy obsession with? I'm going to say it one more time. What do you have a unhealthy obsession with? Let me give an example. So I have a cordial relationship with my ex, or he's not even my ex, but a guy who I was dealing with at one point in time. And I always suspected like we were going to be together at a certain point in time in life, right? And I talked to him recently, and I was letting him know about how what I was so upset about before, I'm not as upset about it now, only because it needed to happen. The heartbreak needed to happen. And what happened was essentially we weren't talking, but it was just one of those things where we weren't talking, but it was just one of those things where I always suspected that me and him was going to be together. And I had this idea, I had this narrative, I had our lives, me and his, planned out. But when we had got into it and we weren't talking anymore, I still had this perspective in my mind, or I still had this narrative in my mind of how things were going to go. In the meantime, and while we weren't talking, he got a girlfriend, broke my heart. And more so because he didn't tell me, but he communicated that he didn't know how to tell me. He was just like, how do I even tell you that? He was like, I just couldn't find the words. Cool, understandable. But I remember saying probably like 2 or 3 years prior, because this happened when, like 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. I can't remember. But I remember saying 2, 3 years prior to that, like if this dude right here, this specific dude, if he ever got a girlfriend, like I don't know what I do. In my head, I just thought I would be busting windows out the car, slashing tires. I thought I would be doing the whole nine, sugar in the tank. You feel me? But surprisingly so, even up until that point, until he got a girlfriend, right? God was doing a thing inside of me that I didn't realize. So when he did get a girlfriend, I was hurt. But more so, like I said, because he didn't articulate or tell me like that he had one. I considered us like very good friends. And it's like, why didn't you just tell me that, opposed to like just going around it or me finding out elsewhere? I mean, we weren't talking, so it wasn't like he cheated, but essentially it's just like, if he had to find out that I was in a relationship via social media or some other way, he would have been hot. All that to say, um, I was more hurt about that. But of course, I was hurt about him having a girlfriend, because now my unhealthy obsession with him, um, my narrative had been basically ruined. I can't ruined. How you say ruined? It was destroyed. Okay. My narrative had been destroyed about how me and his life was supposed to be together. And then it revealed the unhealthy obsession that I had. And it was just like, girl, y'all wasn't supposed to be together like that anyway. And I had to say, Makia, your trust that you put in people, including even the other stuff I just told y'all about, you feel that people shouldn't disappoint you. And that's not how life works. People are going to disappoint you. And I'm telling you this as well, those of you who are listening. People are going to disappoint you, and you have to be ready for that. But I think the biggest thing to question when you are disappointed or when somebody does break your heart, the number one question to ask yourself is, what are their intentions? What do you sense when the action is done, or like when the offense is done? Where do you feel like it came from? So when he got the girlfriend, it was so easy for me to say, oh God, the air conditioner went off, so it's probably like, you could probably hear everything now. But I lost track of thought. But yeah, so to me, y'all, what was I saying? Run it back, 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 run it back. So, dang. Still don't remember what we were talking about, but I'm gonna just keep talking. But when he did get the girlfriend, that's what I was saying. I didn't feel that it was taken personally. Like, I didn't feel like it was a personal attack towards me. Like, I wanted to hurt my kid. I wanted to hurt her feelings. And he said that too. He said, I didn't mean to hurt you, which was the truth. But I took it as more so of, this is what you wanted to do. This is simply what you wanted to do. And so I want to propose that question to you. Like, I want you to actually evaluate, or, just kind of detect, like, where is this coming from? Because you can always sense if it's coming from like an ill place, or a place that's just not good, or a bad place, a dark place, or people's intentions are to hurt you. Like, I will say that this was 2021. Once I found out that he had a girlfriend, his birthday had came later. And it was in my heart to hurt him back, for him to feel the same hurt that I felt. I said, I'm not telling him happy birthday. I know what happy birthdays meant to him. I said, I'm not telling him happy birthday. I'm not doing da 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 da. But I had like a whole agenda on how to hurt. It was revenge, and I knew it. And he knew it too, because I don't operate from that place. That's not who I am. I've never been that type of person. Not naturally, so I'm not that type of person. And so I had to come back, spin a block, and apologize. Not apologize in the sense of like, oh my God, I'm sorry I didn't tell you happy birthday. Because I wasn't obligated to tell him happy birthday because he has a girlfriend now, right? Right. But the place where it came from was just so wrong. It was so wrong. My intentions were to hurt him. And so that's what I want to propose to y'all. I want y'all to really think about when people hurt you, or when you are offended in some way, shape, or form. I want you to sense, I want you to ask yourself, like, did this person do this to intentionally hurt me, or is this because they're misled by their ego, like, where is this coming from? And even if you can't sense it, I suggest that you pray and say, God, show me where it's coming from, or at least help me to detach from people who want to do me harm, or who don't want to be accountable for the offenses that they intentionally did to harm me. That makes sense? And so that's one. What do you have an unhealthy obsession with? And it was definitely that guy, me and that guy being together. And I finally said to him not too long ago, I was like, I'm so glad that happened. He was like, word. I was like, yeah. I'm very grateful that it happened the way that it did, because I had to learn to live my life. My life has always been shaped around my successes, how I was going to succeed, and me being married, because I don't know if any of you know this, but I am a virgin, a 29-year-old virgin. I've definitely tampered in the devil's playground, but it didn't get too far. Thank God, by the grace of God. But my whole life has been shaped in this identity of keeping myself until marriage, finally getting a husband. Like, I had the whole narrative planned out, like I said. And so God was really trying to do something different inside of me. I was so obsessed with that picture that I wasn't even thinking about what it took to be the woman that I am now. And if that heartbreak didn't happen the way that it did, I would not be the woman that I am now. I would still be obsessing over a person, believing or thinking that, they can never hurt me. And it's just like, no. And his intentions weren't to hurt me, but in return, I wanted to hurt him. That was something that I had to check. That was something I realized, like, oh, that's inside of me. Can't do that again. And so that's the first question. The second question is, would you be the healthiest version of yourself if it didn't happen? Just like I mentioned, if the heartbreak didn't happen, I wouldn't be, I promise you, I would not be the girl that I am, the woman that I am today. That heartbreak had to happen to me. Me not making top 16 had to happen to me. Only 3-5 people showing up at my event had to happen to me. My friends' relationships breaking my heart had to happen to me. This guy getting a girlfriend, it had to happen to me. Like, all these things had to happen to me so I could be stronger and experience this pure, organic version of myself. I had to get the impurities out. That's the only way it was going to work. And so God orchestrates things that feels so terrible, just terrible, just bad, just feels so bad. It just hurts. It's a pruning that you didn't want to happen, a pruning that you did not prepare for. And we feel that heartbreaks are just only instructed by the devil or people who are evil, but it's like, no. Sometimes those heartbreaks are divine. They are very divine. He allows you to experience those things. So one, he can humanize you and you can realize, like, you're a human. They are too. And 3, so you can put your full trust in him, because he's the only one that's not going to let you down. Of course, now this is the experience with him. It's rocky sometimes, but I promise you, he got you through it all. So the solutions to all of this is, one, change your perspective about the heartbreak. Change your perspective about the heartbreak. Change the narrative. After you go back to revisit what happened, I need for you to fully assess, were you 100% accountable about the part that you played in the heartbreak or whatever happened? Were you 100% accountable? And if it's quality, like, be 100% accountable about, I'm reading off the notebook, but be 100% accountable about who you are in the present time. And if there is quality things, or if there are things that are great about you, those are the things that you carry with you in the future to the best version, the better version of yourself. But if there are some impurities, if there are some things that could potentially damage your purpose and who you are, you leave those things behind. And that's what that whole process, that's what the whole heartbreak thing is about. God getting the impurities out of you, so when he does progress you, you'll be ready. And like I said, if you ever want to pray the prayer that I prayed, which was, God, don't move me until I'm ready, do it. But I'm telling you, be mindful. You can handle it. You can handle it. It's doable. It's not impossible. But I will say that I am definitely living in that prayer now. And I don't know when God is going to raise me up. I don't know when he's going to do it for me. But I will say, even in the toughest moments, because I'm going through a tough moment right now. You can't tell, but I am, because it's a very transitional period for me. It's still all working for my good. It's still making me a quality person, a person that's untouchable, a person that God is pleased with. I'm not perfect, but like my mama told me earlier today, I firmly believe that God is pleased with me. And so, change your perspective about the heartbreak. Be 100% accountable about who you are in the present time. Not who you want to be, who you think you are, or the wounded version of yourself in the past. Who you are in the present moment, what you are presenting in the present moment. And after you see all the things that you can potentially present or that you have been presenting, you decide, like, this is not good. This can't go with me into the better version of myself. This can't go to the next level. And just allow God to, just trust God even in the heartbreaking process, and understand that it's not all there to destroy you. It's actually there to make you better. All right, y'all. That was episode. Hold on. What episode was that, y'all? Look at my notebook. Episode 15. Get into it. Yay, we did it. I made it through. I really tussled and I struggled to make this, to record this episode, but I'm here. Like I said, I'm in a new location, new city. So I'm just like, how can I do it here? Like, what it's going to look like here? And it's like, just do it. Everything else you'll figure out later. Like, don't even stress it. But yeah, I'll catch y'all for episode 16. I love y'all. Make sure y'all download. Make sure you rate. Make sure you rate the podcast. All the things. Share this episode. Share this episode on social media, and tell the people to listen in. Because I told y'all my business today, and I ain't mean to do that. Not for real, but we here now. So I love y'all, and I'll catch y'all for episode 16.